So welcome everyone. This is Leilani Cawthon from the Learning Counsel. I am a Grandmaster Edu Jedi. I'm proud to be one. A lot of the speakers on this special virtual discussion are at Edu Jedi, and on all the other 8 webinars we have following on. We have another one tomorrow, 4 next week, and a couple the week after. We're really doing this because we wanted to get people together. We wanted people to start communicating about what's happening out there and convene and discuss best practices and sort of muddle through what we're all experiencing right now together. So that's important to us. Is all of you are very important to us. And we just want to make sure that you know you have a forum with us. So in this discussion today, we have Matt Nickerson, who's Instructional Technology Specialist from Anne Arundel County Public Schools, Ellen Palmer, who's Education Technology Pomona from Pomona Unified School District. Also, Superintendent Eric Godfrey, thank you so much for joining us. And Dr. Keisha Taylor, who's the National Education Administrator from T-Mobile, was so gracious to underwrite this particular webinar for us. And I'm going to have her share first what's happening on their front lines. It's a very interesting story.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Keisha Taylor. Like Leilani said, National Education Administrator for T-Mobile. I'm just the head of education for the company. And we have worked very closely with the Learning Counsel over the last several years and just aligning our strategy for education. As of yesterday, we have committed and solidified the commitment through the merger with Sprint on a $10 billion investment into the education space. And so I believe that it could not come at a more opportune time, that education is needing the idea of digital equity even more. And so we're going to heavily work with the Learning Counsel to determine where to infuse those funds and who the key partnerships should be. Right, we've made a few different commitments, and one of them is based on student need. So we're using the National School Lunch Program as a check point for us on that piece. And then we've made several other commitments just at the state level and in making sure that we're helping to connect kids. So a few things have changed, which has been really interesting. So the Empower Ed program is our long-standing education program. Over the last 3 years, we've serviced about 300,000 students. Over the last month, we have actually provided connectivity for over 450,000 students. So just to give you an idea of what scale looks like right now, right? And that's including, 300,000 iPads with the City of New York, and also a very major partnership with Google, that's not including the partnership with Google and the state of California that was announced yesterday. So there's so much happening, and we're working with all these various partners. We also have a very strategic partnership with Microsoft. And I think the biggest takeaway is that, school districts are looking to solve this problem, right? We're all looking to solve this problem for students, particularly our students in marginalized populations. And sometimes we're asking the question, do you have connectivity at home, right? And I think that it gets a little deeper than that for a lot of those student subgroups. And now we're starting to ask, wherever you are during, the day, or when you have time to work on your homework, wherever you are, do you have connectivity? And what does that look like, right? So we know that the number of children is highly correlated with income. And so generally, the lower the income, the more children, which our national average is around 3 children. And so the lower the income, we may have 4 or 5 or even 6 children or more. And so sometimes those households, they may or may not have internet. They may only have one Chromebook or one device that's shared across the whole family. And so we're really working hand in hand with school districts to try and resolve some of that and help them with some of those constraints. What happens if we don't do anything, right? What happens if I spoke with the superintendent yesterday, and she was saying, right now, because, we don't have the budget, we're just going to have to mail out, packets for students to learn with. And so we started talking through, what what does digital equity look like, right? And what are we really providing for students? And I think connectivity alongside a device, or at least the connectivity, is just as important as a student having school materials, right? We know that access to the internet leads to increased academic achievement. We know that over 60% of our jobs in the next 10 years are going to be based in innovative technology. These are all things that we know, right? So we know that we need to empower our students to be connected. Um, and really, schools are the hub of the community. So when we provide internet access and we focus on digital equity for a child, we really are empowering maybe a parent that's been recently unemployed to apply for unemployment, or a family to apply for government assistance, or maybe a grandparent who, is trying heavily to stay isolated to do some telemedicine, which we've seen a dramatic increase in the medical field right now. And so this really is about serving as the hub of the community, as a school district, and doing as much as we can to benefit the community. Another thing that we've seen is just when it comes to the idea of digital equity now, right? A lot of question that we get is, well, we know we only have a couple months left to the school year, and we don't know if we're going to still need this connectivity when school is back in session. I think what we have to really realize is that this situation is going to change the course of how we're teaching and learning, right? How we're interacting with students and families. I think that it's going to allow us to streamline a lot of things, whereas before we weren't really comfortable with it. We thought that all of our teachers had to be sitting in the cafeteria in order to get what they needed for the first couple days of the school year, right? We thought that the only way that we could build camaraderie and professional peer relationships is with face-to-face interaction. And now we know that there can be a combination of things, right? Of course, there's no replacement for a face-to-face teacher. We do know that part. And I always have this saying I use when I meet with school districts. Curriculum is the foundation, pedagogy is the method, and technology is the support. And I think that COVID is challenging that a little bit. It's challenging us to make sure that we can maintain curriculum and teaching and learning as the foundation of everything that we're doing, because there's such a press for the technology piece, right? And so thank you, Leilani. And so as we continue just to kind of plan and talk about what this can look like, right? The real question is, what is digital equity now? How are we supporting underconnected students, right? And what does that support look like? So for models of connectivity, you can have, a dedicated hotspot, which is the primary course of action that we see across the country right now. So that's really the piece where we're saying we want to impact the whole family. The next option, of course, is a hotspot or a Wi-Fi enabled device. There are PCs with built-in SIM cards that can go out to parents and families. We're actually working with Google to expedite a Google Chromebook that's SIM enabled that will work really well at a very low price point. And so our job is to really advocate with all of these large corporations on behalf of schools and say, hey, T-Mobile's making a $10 billion investment in schools. We need you to meet us in the middle with these schools and help our kids, right? We're all in this together. And as a former district administrator, I know that, these large companies do have a responsibility to help us. And they have a responsibility to invest in our kids and in our teachers and our staff. So with partnerships, we've been looking at different e-learning tools online. There's several free e-learning tools, and I'm sure you've all been perusing social media and online resources to see all the free things that they have. I'm more than happy to share that with you. I also have a few other resources that I've been sharing over the last few weeks as I've met with pretty much every state in our country in the month of March. And then hardware providers, right? Who's providing hardware at a very low cost, at least for us to tell our parents where maybe they can order online, or what can they do if we can't support it internally. And then there are a lot of funding changes that are happening, right? We're getting updated budget allocations where we can now take some of our transportation budget and some of our capital expense budget and shift some of those things. The FCC is making some changes with our E-rate funding and government stimulus. Several $billions are being fed into education. And so for T-Mobile, we really are, working very closely with school districts. We have, lowered that price point to $0 and $10 in some instances. We're also paying a lot of the cost of the device for the students. We are providing the SIPA compliant filtering and paying for that piece. We're also paying for all the implementation and support. So there's a lot that we're doing to make sure that we're supporting schools. And this is really about digital equity now and in the long term, right? Because whatever kids need today, we know that we're empowering them to use those same resources moving forward, right? This situation has just kind of catapulted us into a whole new world. So I'm always here to support any of you if you want to talk through your planning. I'd love to be a great resource and a partner, a thought partner with you. And you can always reach out to me at Twitter at KTay Online, KTAY Online. And I'm just looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, Leilani, and we'll be partnering very closely with the National Learning Council and Project 10 Million with the infusion of funding into education.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned all that. I'm sure we're going to maybe have a couple conversations today about the new CARES Act and what that all is going to mean for everyone.
Yes.
But I want to go back to some basics and then give some key questions to Eric, Matthew, and Ellen about, kind of what was top of mind that we're hearing from, our research and our big national survey. By the way, the thing that launched off this whole tour of virtual discussions was we did a survey March 18th. We had 17,075 responses to that survey within 4 hours. A lot of people wanting to contribute. We had to sort of pick and choose our panelists for all of the discussions. It was kind of wild. Still getting more and more of those every day. But let's start first just with a, sort of key question to our panelists based on these basics. These are the things that people are having to ask themselves right now. How long will they be out? Is it short term? Is it long term? Is it a summer makeup that they're going to plan? Or maybe they're planning to be out for the whole rest of this calendar year. And then what do they want to do as a district? Are they just going to try to continue the usual schedule remotely, or are they going to try to drop it and go to some sort of alternate universe of random bits of content? Are they going to retain alignment to academic norms or not? Like maybe they're just going to kick out various supplemental apps. Are they going to be reorganized for frontline versus backline teaching so that they can retain some, retrain some of their teachers? Are they going to try to do roll call continuity with a loose schedule, limiting what they have that they pitch out there with mixed, live, some teaching and a whole lot of courseware apps and sites? Are they sending home big paper packets? Are they outsourcing a semi part of their whole schedule, or are they going to hire an outside full service course and teach online entity? And that is also something that's happening. So we've already sort of answered a little bit, what do you have? Dr. Taylor was great to talk about equitable access, but people need to do these inventories. Do they have office suites only? Do they have a full learning management system? Is there anything in the learning management system for lessons? Do they have communications apps? What other apps do they have? Most school districts don't even know the full extent of all the apps they have in the field. Do they have courses built? Are they using courseware? How prepared are they? And then what can they do right now? Most of them need to be taking inventory like yesterday of what they have. And a lot of that hasn't even been done. Sequence their lessons plans so they can go digital. Use immediately supplemental apps and pay attention to continue to create community. Then their training. The number one thing that the Learning Council has been telling everyone is, first of all, create communication, create community, create a sense of included. We're all going through this together, whether or not you get any learning done. Create that as your number one thing. So with that said, I want to turn it back to our panelists ask you one at a time, what's the number one priority now? What are your challenges in creating that sense of continuity? So Eric, can you unmute and go first?
That's a little pressure there right off the bat, Leilani, but thank you. Well, welcome everyone who's on here, and I hope that that you're staying safe and staying healthy. We're in Arizona, and so we have just been announced that our schools by our governor have been closed for the remainder of the school year. We also just recently, by our governor, have been given a stay-at-home order, and he's calling it uniquely Arizona. So he's given a list of essential businesses, and people are still allowed to move freely, but they're being asked to be responsible and stay at home. And so we as a school district are trying to exhibit fellowship as much as we are exhibiting leadership. And as these directives are giving, we're trying to model that behavior. So obviously we have moved all of our educational services to online. One of the buzzwords that's being used in Arizona through statute and discussions with legislatures and Department of Education has been online education experiences. People have been really cautious to use instruction and learning and some of those type of words because the interpretation of those can be exponentially staggering to students. We are fortunate in our district to be a one-to-one school district. We're a high school only district, so we're not dealing with little kiddos. We're dealing with 9th through 12th graders. We do have 4 elementary feeder school districts that feed into us. We're in the west side of Phoenix, so we've experienced exponential growth. And one of the things that is a challenge for us is, of those 4 elementary districts, that's about 17 elementary schools that feed kids into our district. Our freshman class this year, to share with the growth, we have 96 different elementary schools that are represented, and those are only in-state elementary schools based on a standardized test score that flows through our system. If we count kids that have moved in from out of state, we're probably in the 125 or 130 different 8th grade kids that have come to one of our high schools. So being able to gather all of them to begin with is a challenge. We provide laptops, not Chromebooks, but laptops. We're a Microsoft Office school district, so our kids use Teams, use OneNote, use the Office suite and things like that. So people said, well, you're a one-to-one, you can just turn this thing on. This won't be any big deal for you guys. And making the transition from using technology as an enhancement tool to making that the main delivery mode is a huge lift for everyone. So we're not in the device equity divide, but things like kids have lost their chargers, and we typically charge a kid to replace their charger. But now we can't even see that kid to get the charger. And then when we started talking about equity, we had to be able to get those kids a charger. So we started providing chargers. So those are just some of the onions that or the layers that you peel back as this onion. So we have created our online experience into stages, which is stage 0, which that's become a common term in our district as we put out initiatives. And stage 0 means that that's the learning stage, that's the engage stage, that's the let's figure this out stage. And so we're in a stage 0, connect and engage. And then our stage 1 is going to be to review and solidify skills. And then stage 2 is going to be new learning. And we are allowing personalized learning from a standpoint of like our advanced placement kids have already, the College Board has already announced that there's still going to be the test. It will just be a different, a little bit different test. But those kids almost immediately across our district were almost 100% engaged and connected and thirsting for new instruction. And so those teachers we allowed to go through with some of those. we have other kids that haven't completely engaged. We are beginning today to work with our school resource officers and our site level administration, and we are going out to start doing home visits. We are calling them wellness checks to begin with, but just making sure that kids are okay. We're providing hotspots for kids. We have got with a point-to-point wireless company that's going to create remote hotspots. We have parked our buses that are Wi-Fi enabled into strategic areas based on finding out. We have identified every kid to the granular level of name and address of where they're at and if they have connectivity. I love the question that was just talked about, though, of whenever and wherever you are during the day, when you're going to do your homework, do you have connectivity and what does that look like? I think that's a key question because some of these kids aren't at home now, depending on what their home situation is. So again, peeling back those layers, but again, trying to be strategic to connect kids as possible. Our teaching staff has made, we've probably contacted by phone over 50% of our students, which is, we have about 4,800 high school students in our district. So we've made several thousand phone calls, but we are down into the less than probably 250 kids district-wide that we haven't had at least contact with one teacher to a student. So when we talk about turning this thing in a hurry, I think that there's lots of districts out there across the nation that have done some amazing things, that teachers have stepped up just because that's what teachers do. And then the collaboration of our teachers and the training has exponentially increased. So when they're taking their office hours during the day, so not a traditional school day, but at least giving some kids some normalcy of when they know they can get a kid. And then we have a couple of times when it's open question and answer, and then we're scheduling IEPs, 504s, METs, any of the ESS type of meetings. We're still trying to provide services. The stay-at-home thing has created another little wrinkle in providing some of the services, but we're also starting to identify and budget for compensatory services so that we can talk about all kids. And equity is not just for the special needs kids, but also for our, we have 2 title schools in our district, so we have some economically disadvantaged kids. We've got homeless kids. We've got all those kids that everybody has. So those are the pieces from an academic standpoint. But one of the things that is starting to rise as a high school district is that parents and kids are worried about, they're worried about the social part of things. And that's one of our biggest challenges because our athletics and activities have been canceled. Our proms have been canceled. Our graduation ceremonies right now are in jeopardy of being canceled. Our senior award nights are being canceled. So we're starting to look for some creative ways to create some experiences for kids so that they can have those special moments still be special. And then look at how we potentially can postpone things and move in those directions. So again, we could have each one of us that are talking about, of the panelists talk about what we're doing, talk for the whole time, or we could have anybody that's attending bring things. So those are some of the biggest things that we're trying to attack right now in your list of basics, Leilani.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I want to call on Matt next. Matt, you want to unmute and, answer the same sort of general questions. What's the priority? What are the challenges?
Hi, yeah, thank you. I'm here from Maryland, so right outside Washington, D.C., and very different, I think, situation from Eric, although I must start by saying I'm a little bit jealous of Eric. I work in a hybrid district of Microsoft and Google, and I am the Microsoft guy in the county, and Google has won in our district as far as current events. So like my skill set is definitely the Teams and OneNote, and we have gone completely Google Classroom and Meet. So a little bit jealous there. But the setting that I'm in is also very different. We have everything from urban to rural schools. We have over 130 schools in our district, over 85,000 students in our district. So heard you mention turning things quickly. We joke about our district that it's like turning the Titanic under normal circumstances. To change anything just takes a lot of time. And for example, right after Christmas, I had taken we write all of our own curriculum, but I had taken one of our courses and moved it all into OneNote and Teams, and was going to show that to people in our curriculum writing, and it just completely got shut down. Like, this was a rebellious act on my part. And looking back, it's like, wow, if there was no time to move all our curriculum to Teams between January and when this hit, but any course that had been moved there would be ready to roll at this point, instead of us trying to piece things together. So we are fortunate in being large in that with us writing our own curriculum, I know one of the ideas that was mentioned in the promotional material here is having some teachers do the lesson planning and design and others do the delivery. But we have enough staff that we have been creating, not recreating our curriculum, but pulling from the curriculum and creating specific lessons for particularly our graduation requirements. So we have kind of 3 different levels of courses where some of them, 100% of what you're teaching starting in 2 weeks is coming directly from the board. And then other courses, we're able to pull together about half the lessons, and then you pull from our curriculum for the rest. And then other courses where, for whatever reason, there were less of a priority for this, and so you are, as the teacher, free, but on your own to kind of put together anything from our curriculum. So we're a couple weeks in, and we started very easy on the students, and in fact, we told the teachers essentially to just take 2 weeks off, and we provided a lot of, I guess, not remedial, but a lot of basic review work that was not new material, not new content. And our first week of doing new content, the focus and impetus to the teachers has been, hey, just get used to the tools, get your kids used to the tools. So again, kind of breaking everybody in as gently as possible. Low challenge work up front, learning the tools next, and slowly ramping up to try and return to more rigor. But we're also not making any effort whatsoever to keep the schedule that was in place before this. So we have certain times of the day that teachers and students are expected to do new lessons, and other times that it's more like office hours. And so teachers have to respect one another's office hours. So we've kind of outlawed the idea of, on A days from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., you need to be in here watching my live lesson. So teachers are allowed to do live lessons with the understanding that nobody is expected to attend them live, that everything will be recorded and students can access that as they have the ability. So in addition to the obvious challenge of distance, and I think it's funny, my wife and I, we have 8 kids, and we talk to our children about kind of a continuum of quality of communication, with face-to-face being most high quality, and then phone calls and letters and postcards. And then as we've grown up, we added email, and of course now we have video conferencing and texting. And in our view, that's kind of a continuum of better to worse communication. But then our children's generation kind of argues that no, they're all sort of equivalent. So like I said, schedules have gone out the window, and we also have a lot of the device inequity that we've already heard a little bit about. And in addition, it's not simply a question of, do you have internet at your house? Do you have a device at your house? How many devices do you have at your house? How many people are working and need to use those same devices? How many different students are trying to access those same devices? And I think when we started in our district, initially it was a 2-week period that we all kind of knew was going to grow. But when it was just officially 2 weeks, I think there was a real dilemma of, do we do what we can for who we can? And there was also this kind of subconscious awareness of, well, if we do that, the unintended consequences, we are increasing the achievement gap. Because statistically, like we've heard, you're going to find a lot of similarity in demographics between students who already perform below average and students who don't have consistent, reliable internet or a sufficient number of devices. And so I think there was a little bit of a slow start in terms of, well, almost hoping this would resolve itself and not exacerbate that achievement gap. And now we've shifted into all right, let's do everything we can. Let's do what we can for who we can, determine who we're not doing things for, who we're not reaching, and let's get creative about ways to reach all of them. It looks like at this point for Maryland, they're saying April 24th, but I'm part of the group that's putting together lessons, and I know that for a lot of our subject areas, we have folders that go beyond April 24th. So we are preparing as if this is going to go the rest of the year, hoping it doesn't. But then we got thrown another loop a couple days ago, and I realized different school districts handle this particular topic differently. But in Maryland and Virginia, where we have large districts, we tend to, when it comes to federal laws like SIPA, COPA, FERPA, we tend to not take the approach that when a technology offering says that school districts can act essentially as a parent surrogate and giving permission, our lawyers say, no, that's not the case. So when YouTube a couple days ago said, YouTube's terms of service have changed, and if you're not 13, you shouldn't be using it, that's thrown us for a whole new loop. Like, we are scrambling for, well, how do we get the YouTube videos that were in our curriculum out to students under 13 without them going to YouTube? So that's a whole nother mini hurricane that's just arrived on our shore. So our special needs, my background is special ed. I did special ed for 20 years, and what got me into technology was exactly that. I kept finding that if I'm really going to approach anywhere near what they're asking me to do with individual students, I need to harness technology to do that. So it's there's absolutely no replacement for a teacher, but as a teacher, I certainly used a lot of technology. So you look at things like Microsoft has put Immersive Reader not only throughout all of their products, but they've made that available to other products. So you can go to Wakelets and you can go to Nearpod and Pear Deck and use Immersive Reader. You've got Chrome extensions like Read and Write to do similar things. A lot of ed tech tools incorporate either UDL or assistive technology. So again, Nearpod, Pear Deck have multiple ways for students to respond. Often they can write, type, draw, insert an image. Flipgrid was already offering video responses, and I think just yesterday they launched a browser-based narrated screen recording. So now your students, whether they're recording themselves or recording what's on their device, they can record and narrate, and very easy to turn that in. So it's really easy to do the UDL piece of there's multiple ways to get this content to students. There's multiple ways to have students show what they know. Just the act of now we're recording, well, okay, we've known for a long time we shouldn't be lecturing for very long, but when you start recording that and suddenly a teacher's faced with, wow, I talked that long, hopefully that'll help on that front as well. But when you record and you screen share and capture whatever you're doing on your whiteboard or on OneNote or whatever, unlike live lectures, that students can then pause, they can rewind, they can rewatch, save it into Stream, get automatic captioning. So it's not all bad news in terms of accessibility. So the challenge for us and the way our district's handling it is essentially the general ed teachers are teaching what they teach, and our special ed teachers who were co-teaching are not going to be in there co-teaching at the same time. So we're kind of reassigning or reevaluating what our special education teachers do, and they're going to have a whole different approach of trying to reach out to kids through Google Voice, through Google Meet, and it's almost like a digital pullout. Again, and we're a state and a district that are way ahead of the curve in terms of not separating kids and not pulling out, but essentially everybody's in the same boat now. Regular ed students, special ed students are all in the same environment now. And so it kind of frees up our special ed teachers to be more personal, to be more direct, to work with smaller groups directly. So that's
great.
Yeah, that's Maryland in a whirlwind.
Yeah, in the whirlwind. Yeah. So Ellen, my friend, I saved you for last. I've known you for a long time, always been very proud of you and your district. Tell us what's happening in Southern California.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ellen Palmer. I work in Pomona Unified School District. We are a much smaller school district than Matthew and Eric's. We have about 24,000 students that we service across 42 schools. And we're preschool through 12th grade or through adult. So I would say that the priorities that we have had over the last 3 weeks since we went on our safe at home order was 4 things. And so the first thing is ensuring that all teachers and all students have technology as well as access to the internet at home. And we're still working on that. However, recently we had 2 employees test positive for coronavirus, and so our drive-through pickup has been suspended until the detailed cleaning can occur, and then we'll see what they allow us to do. I know my boss is on a call right now investigating the lockers that you could have somebody go and drop off the power cord that the student needs, and then the parent would be given the combination at that moment to go and pick up. So we're investigating alternate ways that we can have students and teachers pick up technology that they might need. The next thing that we have been struggling with and kind of figuring out is the ongoing support. So how does a student or a teacher whose device isn't working, how do they get ongoing support? We established a helpline about 2 weeks ago and got it up and running, and one email about a digital tool that students were gaining access to, and the helpline crashed because too many parents called in at the same time. So they figured that out. They relaunched on the 31st of March, and they now have kind of a help chain. So when the calls come in, they get routed to different areas. So that is working. And then lastly is teacher support. So one of the things that we did, the first week, we were similar to Eric's or Matthew's district in the fact that the first week that teachers were off and students were off, the district just said, relax, stay at home, stay safe, and we're, planning and working things out, and we'll get back to you. And then last week, through all that brainstorming that first week, we were able to host an online conference. So we put together a total of 76 online trainings that teachers and administrators could register for. They focus anywhere from the core tools that we chose to leverage during this time, which are Zoom, Google Classroom, and Google Voice. That was the first 2 days we focused on those. And then the remainder of the week, we had sessions around our core textbook materials that we have digitally, our personalized learning tools, so those programs that allow the student to go in and do practice, and then teachers can pull reports to see how they're doing, as well as the program, guiding the student and giving them more of what they need and less of what they already have proven that they know. Collaboration tools, so the flip grids, the seesaws, those tools that allow for listening and speaking to occur, reading and writing, and allowing the teacher to be able to go in and see every student's thinking. And then the other part, we had some apps that were part of our initial kind of supplemental apps that parents could access that first week if they wanted to have their students doing some learning. And so we have a few of those that we'll provide training on. In terms of where our district chose to go in terms of like grading and expectations, the MOUs that were established between our unions and our teachers provided a lot of flexibility for teachers, because we have teachers at varying levels of their own personal tech use. So those teachers that feel comfortable to lesson plan and leverage technology in ways that they already know how, we said go for it. And then the district has been working with our teacher specialists, our TOAs, as well as our literacy coaches to develop lessons that will be pushed out weekly. So those teachers whose skills are not quite there yet, they'll be able to leverage those existing lessons that are being developed by our teacher experts at the district level. We're choosing to focus on standards that allow the student to go deeper in their understanding rather than introducing a whole bunch of new content to them. However, we have expressed to the teachers that it would be good if you know a particular standard is foundational and the students need to have in order to go into the next grade level or course, that they do recommend introducing some new standards. In terms of grading, we had just completed our third quarter grade reports, and so all students will be getting those as their final grades, unless the student chooses to complete assignments during this window of time. And so teachers will only be, they'll be grading assignments, but they'll be only enhancing the students that needed grade enhancement rather than, taking a grade down because a student wasn't able to complete something. The other thing, next week when we come back from spring break, so we had a week off, a week of teacher conferences, and we've been on spring break this week. Next week when we come back, we've asked teachers this first week to not go, heavy on the content, but really focus on the well-being of the student, checking in. In our conference and continuing on, we're providing professional learning for our teachers. We have sessions such as introducing social emotional learning into subject or content matter, community circles and daily check-ins, how to facilitate those through Zoom or Google Meet, teaching behavioral expectations and routines in an online. So we're really asking the teachers to kind of focus in that realm. This next week, we're also going to be having all teachers survey their students so we can identify those students that still do not have technology, so that we can get what they need. How that will look, we're still trying to figure that out. I would say that's kind of been our last 3 weeks. I actually see this as a blessing in disguise. Being part of educational technology for many, many years, I've always felt like we're moving in the right direction, but it's very slow and, of course, not as fast as I would like to move. However, the collaboration that we've been able to have across our district just over these last 3 weeks across our educational service departments has really impacted our district for the good. The professional learning that we provided last week is actually now that we were notified yesterday that our schools will be closing through the end of the school year. We will not be coming back to the buildings. However, we will continue doing digital learning for the remainder of the school year as well as through summer school. And so what's awesome is we're going to be able to provide this ongoing online conference for teachers to continue to grow their own knowledge and skills around digital learning for the remainder of the school year. We would never have this opportunity to go as wide and deep as we are with the sub shortages that our district experiences. It's rare that we're able to provide professional learning for large groups. For example, I was looking at our science STEM scopes. We've been providing professional learning last week, and last week alone we had 392 teachers and admin trained in STEM scopes, and that would have never happened in our traditional setup. So to me, I see this as a blessing in disguise.
Ellen, thank you so much. You've been really awesome. I'm seeing a lot of comments come in. Rather than go to another set of questions, I think with only 15 minutes left, I think it's really good to create more community discussion. So I'm going to check our chat boards and see kind of what questions have come in so far and have you guys all answer them. One of the questions here from Heather. Hi, Heather. I know you're going to be on another webinar later. Do you want to ask what you want to ask and have everybody answer?
I'm Heather Sherburne. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Lammersville Joint Unified School District, just inland from San Francisco Bay Area. And we are fortunate that we have a lot of one-to-one devices and have been using technology in our regular program for quite a while. A majority of our families have connections. My question had been around, though, we do have some rural students, and we do not have traditional AT&T or Comcast availability out there, nor do those families have good cell signal coverage, which is shocking being so close to the Bay Area and to a major freeway. And yet that's still the case without reliable cell service and hard connections. We just are very limited in our ability to provide individual families, which are often migrant workers living on a farm, with coverage to participate in our distance learning that we've been doing. So looking for satellite providers has been really challenging. And I see a note here that T-Mobile has Dish Spectrum and Sprint.
Yeah, I'm fine to speak to that if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, so as a result of COVID and some of the influx in need, right, we petitioned the government to allow us to use our Dish Spectrum from the new merger, since day zero was yesterday. And then we've also kicked off our Sprint Spectrum in addition to the T-Mobile network. And so a lot of areas that did not have a footprint now have a very strong footprint, right? So the network has changed dramatically over the last month. And so what I would love to do is anyone who reaches out, if you have any rural area situations like that, let us now look at what that footprint is for you and let you know if we can actually help those students and how we can help them. And then another thing that we also offer are cell signal boosters. And generally there's a charge for those, but every single student can qualify for those at no cost through their district. And they can put it in the home and it will magnify any cell signal that it can get from outdoors. It will magnify that inside of the student's home. So we do have a few solutions for that, and we're doing the very, very best we can. Our focus is on rural area student connectivity above all else. So we want to make sure everyone can get connected.
That's great. Everyone that registered, we're going to share, contact information with each other. Terry Novacek, do you want to unmute and ask Superintendent Godfrey your question?
Hi, this is Terry. Dr. Godfrey, I was just wondering, you mentioned that you use laptops, not Chromebooks, and I'm wondering, do you have the same model for all students and what that model is?
Terry, I saw your question on the chat, and I actually was reaching out to our IT guy so I could answer correctly. We use two different right now. Our two biggest models we have is a Lenovo 14W and the Dell 3390. Our upper grades have Dell 3340s and 3350s, but I'll respond back to the chat in private and give those exactly to you.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. And then Lisa, you had a question that I think Matt would be good to answer. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, I did actually. Thank you very much. So my question is I work at a private special ed school in Massachusetts where the majority of our students are sent to us from districts due to their needs being so great. And one of the things we're really struggling with is that we have two students who are significantly cognitively impaired, nonverbal, and also one is legally blind and the other one has is cortical blind. So we're trying to figure out what is out there that could support these students, and we're kind of all at a loss. So I thought maybe, Matt, you might be able to answer that.
So I think you hit my kryptonite there. I have worked with every disability federally listed. I've worked with birth through 21-year-olds, but yeah, you hit my 1 weak spot, with the one exception.
I have a suggestion. This is Leilani.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, I have a suggestion. There's a company, if you haven't reached out to them, they're called Presence Learning, and they may have solutions in that area.
Thank you. I appreciate it because that was.
Yeah, you should check for social media groups on all the major social media sites for groups in those areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what devices do you have? What devices and you tend to be a Microsoft or Google district?
So we have Chromebooks, but we also, these two students in particular have iPads with Pro Go on them for their communication devices, but they also, one of them doesn't really ever use it. I'm not quite sure how the student, they're new to us too, really even got it because he's blind. So we've been trying to figure out how to work with them and support them some more. But yeah, it's my kryptonite as well. I've been in education for a while and I'm stuck.
I'm gonna ask Kate to unmute because she has a comment to make. Go ahead, Kate.
Hi. So I'm actually also in Massachusetts. I'm in Dorchester, and I was wondering if you ever used I took advantage of the Perkins Library.
Okay.
So the Perkins School for the Blind has a library that will loan technology as well as Braille, large print books, talking books, and also will give people access to the Library of Congress's National Library Service for the Blind.
Okay.
And they will actually, if you put together like a list of, hey, I really enjoy these types of books, they will actually take a stack of books in whatever format you need and send you a monthly mailing if you want. And it's not just for students, it's for any person with severely impaired vision in the state.
Oh, awesome. Thank you very much. Because I had reached out to their district and they're like, we don't know. That's why we sent them to you. It's like, oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, I'm a librarian, so I've talked before to the guy who kind of coordinates all of that, and he will talk your ear off about all of the different technology and stuff they have to assist blind and low vision individuals.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yep.
So he will probably know more of this type of thing than I do, but I know that Apple, Chrome, and Windows all have ways to turn on accessibility features just in general on your devices. And then there's an app called Seeing AI that is a phone app that has, it was designed for visual impairment and has about 8 different tools built in that read everything out loud. Again, immersive reader, it's just reading, but you can have absolutely any text in a OneNote notebook and immersive reader will read it out loud. And there's a related app to that as well called Office Lens. So an individual can take a picture of anything and hear it read in Office Lens. As a teacher, you can take a picture of anything and send it to OneNote and then share it with students, and then the students can take advantage of the optical character recognition in there. So that's specifically about reading.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we're going to also talk some more tomorrow, everyone, on the next webinar, which is the online resources discussion about what sites, apps, and systems for different areas. Both Jasna Elefendik and Dan Downs are experts in this area. Jasna's kids are jealous of her because she gets to play learning games all day long to vet them for her district in Garland. So there's a lot to talk about with regards to app availability. I just want to make sure we back up for this webinar now. Is there any other sort of comments or questions? We have a couple more minutes left and that's it, about being right here at this moment in 0 hour, flipping ourselves to digital so quickly. Any comments or questions left? Looks like Adrian, do you want to ask your question of Ellen?
Yes, Ellen, I thought that was amazing what you talked about, the locker drop off for like devices or power cords and things. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on how that's done?
So you might have seen these at stores. They have them, they have them kind of out and about now. But basically what it does is it allows us to place the device in a locker outside of like one of our schools. Let's say we buy enough to, do a little like 5 slots at each school. And then when the parent arrives, you text them the code and they can get into their locker, and then we can change the code immediately. So whatever we put in that locker space for the next family or teacher to pick up, they can. We're trying to figure out a way to continue to provide the technology supports throughout the closure and also minimize any interaction amongst our staff and our families to protect them.
Okay, and could you tell me again where you said you purchased those?
If you will, I can get your email and name from Leilani, and then I can email you. My boss is the one that's actually doing the research today.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Heather, is there other questions from you?
I was just asking what the name was of that Immersa reader for the blind that whoever was speaking was talking about. I didn't quite catch it.
I'm going to add those to the chat, the names of each of those apps.
Okay.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, as a common practice for our live events, when we actually got to be together and shake each other's hands, remember those old days? We normally send out the list of contact information for everybody because we want you guys to stay in touch with each other, and have your access. So I think at this time we're probably going to wrap this up. I just really want to thank everyone. Thank you, Dr. Taylor, for helping us put this out here. And Matt, thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. And I'm super proud of all of you sticking with it. We're America. We can do this. Superintendent Godfrey, God bless you. Thank you so much for what you're doing for your kids. Matt Nickerson, your help was just amazing. Thank you. And Ellen, I think what you're doing is fantastic. I love the structure and the organization that you're bringing for all of your kids. And just thank you guys all so very much. Okay, at this time, I'm going to end the recording. Hope to see you on some of the later ones. Thank you.